This is my full in-depth review of the Adidas Predator Instinct Battle Pack colorway, and these boots released in 2014 during the World Cup in Brazil. Now, that also means that these boots are 10 years old, and for being 10 years old, they did a pretty good job. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get these boots brand new with the original box. I did get them slightly used without the regular box or bag, so that's kind of a bummer, but I had to pick these up. It's such a cool colorway and a pair of boots that I never actually wore before. I do, however, have the Nitro Charge 1.0 in the Battle Pack colorway that came out at the same time, and this is the box it came with. Now, it's slightly different than what the box would look like with the Predators. It'd be more hexagon pattern, but you kind of get an idea what they would look like. And also, here's a photo of what that box would look like. And I'm not gonna keep you guys waiting. We're gonna go ahead and jump into the in-depth and on-foot review. And the sole plate for the Predator Instinct is very similar to the Predator LZ, except for the middle forefoot stud. They moved up into the dead center instead of down in between the two midfoot studs, and I'll show a good photo for comparison. The Predator Instinct also has these tiny spikes on the bottom of the sole plate. This is just to help with grip a little bit. It's nothing super crazy. It's not going to do any sort of difference on turf or grass. I think it's just more for show, and I didn't really notice any extra grip on it. And the Ace 15.1, which would come a year later, also has something similar, except the studs would be a lot bigger. They wouldn't be all these little tiny ones. Something that is also interesting that I noticed is the bottom of the sole plate is clear, like the entire sole plate. This is all the bottom of the boot, not the actual sole plate that you can see. And then it also has this like softer plastic that wraps around the outsides of the sole plate. And I believe this is just to help with all the rubber elements and hold them in place. I didn't have any issues with them coming undone, so that's cool. That's the only other reason I could really see why they have kind of a multi-layered sole plate system. They also did with the Predator Instinct, at least for this model, I have to double check the rest of them, is that you can see the orange Adidas 3 stripes wrap all the way down to the bottom of the boot on the sole plate, and it's clear so you can see them. This is kind of a nod to the older Predator Manias and maybe some of the older Predator boots as well. I'm not big on those, but I believe a lot of them had the 3 stripes wrap all the way down through the bottom. So kind of cool they did a little Easter egg there. Now, in terms of performance on grass versus turf, I only wore these on turf. It is very cold in Michigan where I'm at. And in fact, I was filming some B-roll for some indoor boots outside today. I will no longer be doing that. It is too cold. I'm getting too old for all of that. So I only wore them on turf. They performed pretty well. I didn't have any real issues or snags. And the issues I did have, I'll talk about a little bit later in lockdown, but nothing related to the sole plate itself. If we move on to the upper, what's well known about this boot is the rubber elements that coat the entire upper. The rubber elements are basically just an upgraded version of the lethal zones from the Pred LZ 1 and 2, and they're supposed to help with a better grip on the ball. Now, did I really feel this? Not a whole lot, but it is kind of a cool feature that these boots have. The rubber elements all have a special name like Sweet Spot, I believe touch, shooting, passing, and I think there's a fifth one. I can't remember them all, but I don't really think they put that kind of effort into the Instinct as much as they did on the lethal zones, but it's still a cool idea that they tried to keep around, and I believe the lethal zone areas were developed by pros anyways, so kind of interesting. A small detail about these boots as well is any black part of the upper has black scaling, and it looks like the 2015 F50s, except not as aggressive, and it's a lot more subtle. You have to catch the light to really be able to see it, but I thought that's a cool detail they added. And the majority of the upper is made of this material called Hybrid Touch. I wouldn't compare it to something like Kangalite on a CTR, but it is soft, it is fairly flexible. I found it rather comfortable, and it does provide a good touch. Definitely one of the better synthetics to date, I would say, over any of the new stuff that's on any of the Vapors, the X's, anything like that. So it's cool that at least some of this old technology still holds up very well. Real quick, I just wanted to let you guys know that we actually have a website, haltsboots.com, where we sell football boots. And what's pretty cool is we have some old models, some new models, a bit of everything in between, and usually we sell stuff at $100 or more under retail. So if you want to purchase a pair, make sure to use YouTube at checkout for 5% off on your order. Whenever I would wear these boots aggressively, and I mean that in the sense of cutting, 1v1s, any sort of real hard movement, whenever I was playing competitively, I had a lot of slippage, especially in the heel, and I would also get a suction sound, and that suction sound is one, because my feet were sweaty, which yes is gross, but it does happen, and two, the material that coats the inside of the boot. It feels like it's the same material that's on the outside almost. It's tweaked a little bit, but almost exactly the same, so that's going to lead to a lot of just suction and all sorts of issues that I had. And it also has some sort of texture on the inside that's peeling off. You'll get a better view of it here, but I don't really think that helps with grip anyways, and to be honest, the only reason that I even mention this is because it's peeling off, and I think it's just peeling off because of age. And yeah, it didn't really add any sort of real help when it comes to lockdown. And I really don't like the lockdown aspect on this boot, one, because it sucked, but two, because it seemed this boot was marketed more for lockdown. The bottom of the tongue that would rest on your sock has this Velcro-y, velvety texture. And it's actually the same texture that's on the laceless X models from, I think, the Ghosted, Speed Portal, Speed Flow, and I don't think the Crazy Fast have them, but it's that same texture that goes all around the heel cup. And it just really didn't provide any grip on my sock. I had lots of tongue slippage. In fact, it's probably the worst tongue slippage I've had on a pair of boots to date. When you factor in all of these things, the tongue slippage, even though it's not supposed to, the suctioning happening, the suction noise happening rather, and then any sort of heel slippage that was pretty bad, any sort of aggressive movement I had. And again, no fault of the sole plate. It's all just the lockdown design of this boot. It's really underwhelming and I wouldn't say upsetting, but disappointing. As for sizing, I went with my normal 9 US, and these boots do feel like they're meant for more wide feet, but kind of hard to tell because I bought them used and they definitely had a few owners in the past and probably were stretched out a little bit, but size 9 worked pretty well for me lengthwise. If you have narrow or even regular feet, I'm pretty sure these boots will be fine for you as well. I don't know if you'll suffer from tongue slippage at all, but having wide feet is something I just always deal with, but even more so for this boot. So that's just something to watch out for. Comfort on this boot is actually pretty decent. I never had any real pain in any areas of the boot, whether it be the width, any normal hot spots, arch pain, heel pain, anything. So comfort-wise, that gets a plus for me. I do have a suspicion that because of the previous owners, I dodged the break-in time, and that's usually where most of the pain and uncomfortable feelings happen. But hey, I'm not complaining too much on that because I always hate that process, and I didn't even get any blisters either, which I haven't been for the last year since I started reviews. I think maybe the only other pair that gave me blisters were the Superfly 9 back in May. So pretty good streak on that. And then also the hybrid touch. It really is comfortable on the inside. I enjoyed that a lot. And overall, comfort for these boots were not a problem. Now, durability is the last thing I wanted to hit on, and not just because old boots wear down and break a lot. In the past in Halt's boots, we've actually sold a few pair of Predator Instincts in different colorways, and an issue that we would have is some of the rubber areas would actually be peeling off, and the boots are brand new and it didn't actually affect the integrity or structural integrity of the boot. But we did have to tear off some of the rubber pieces, and yes, we did put that in the description when they sold a few years ago that, hey, the rubber's coming off, but didn't have any issues with this boot. Haven't seen any real signs of sole separation. I want to say that's because of the kind of dual system or whatever I called it earlier. I just made up a name, but kind of having a two-layered system sole plate or whatever. I really think that that design helps keep the rubber elements safe, and also the fact that these boots were worn previously in the last 10 years, at least by one other person, most likely by two, helps a lot. And what I mean by helps a lot is when you wear older boots, typically this will prevent them from breaking down. I don't know the science behind that, unfortunately, but the more you use a product, obviously it will break down over time, but if you use it sparingly, you should be okay, especially with older boots. And that's actually something I suggest you do with older boots, is actually wear them, one, because it's cool, and two, because it keeps the boot together. My overall rating for the Adidas Predator Instinct is a 7.6 out of 10, so a solid C. It's a good boot, but not something I think I'll continue to wear. It was cool to wear, it was fun to wear. Nobody had seen these in a long time when I whipped these out at pickup or, you know, in games, so that's always fun, but I had to push that bias down of wearing a pair of classic boots, because at this point they are classics. And 7.6 seemed fair. I didn't really appreciate the tongue slippage, especially with it's got that Velcro-y type texture on it, and whatever the weird stuff is on the inside of the boot, I just didn't really like that at all. Also, I lost the size tag. I forgot to mention that. The size tag kind of just fell off, but you know, durability is good on these, which is great. They're fun to wear. I just won't be putting them in my rotation because they didn't wow me that much, but I do suggest if you find a pair of Predator Instincts, whether it's this colorway or another one, and they're not an arm and a leg to buy, definitely pick them up because I think you'll have a fun time wearing them. And overall, I did enjoy wearing this boot besides the lockdown. So that's all I have for you guys today. If you enjoyed this review, if you enjoy football boot reviews, facts, videos about football boots, make sure to check out the channel. And with that, I'll catch you in the next video.